Am I on, Lorraine? Can you guys hear me, Lorraine?
Mr. Ortiz, can you hear me?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So
Okay.
the speakers might be off. We'll have them work on it.
Okay, sounds good.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Are you guys there?
Ron, we don't have a quorum yet, so we're waiting, okay?
Oh, okay.
We're on.
We're going to move Delta. We're going to move the school reports first to be the first presentation. Okay, then we'll see what we can go do from that point on.
All right, you guys, I'm on.
Okay. Call to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Here.
And Leon Dagley. Robert Hayes. Richard Jones.
I'm here.
Ron Ortiz.
Here.
There's a quorum. Adoption of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
I would like to suggest that we move item B, the reports from the individual school sites, ahead of A in presentations. And we'll see how long we have a quorum tonight.
There's a request by the superintendent to move B to become A and A to become B. That's the only change that you are recommending?
Yes, sir.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda as with the amendment as recommended by Mr. Weiner?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Motion made by Richard Jones, seconded by Ron Ortiz to approve the agenda as amended. Roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Aye.
And okay, that's it. Okay, motion carries. Recognitions.
Adoption of the minutes, Dr. Gray.
Okay, I didn't see that. I got the wrong glasses on. Mr. Weiner,
I recommend that we approve the amendments, the minutes from the last meeting.
is there a motion to that effect?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Richard Ortiz and seconded by Richard Jones to approve the minutes as presented. Roll call.
Dr. Guyer Shambo.
Yes.
Richard Jones.
Aye.
Ron Ortiz.
Aye.
Motion carries. Recognitions.
Tonight, we have a very special recognition. As you guys know, several months ago, we started recognizing people with our Edu Champion Award. It's kind of been moving through the district and we change every month. And so we have a really great recipient tonight that we want to acknowledge and recognize for December. Antonio Lopez is the district locksmith. He does way much more than that. Antonio is dedicated. He is approachable. He shines as a beacon of support within the team. He is always lending a hand without hesitation, and his collaborative spirit fosters unity. Antonio's consistent reliability and willingness to assist makes him an invaluable asset. He elevates team morale and productivity. This is the reason why Antonio has been selected as the GCCS Edu Champion for the month of December. You're the Edu Champion.
You gotta wear that to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Part of your uniform. New tool belt. No tool belt.
Fantastic. Whoa, hold it up.
I get Ron's water bottle.
That you're gonna say nothing. Sure.
Okay, no, we do family. No, it's okay.
I could have made it tighter.
Ready? I have you back on the. Congratulations.
Thank you. All your hard work. That completes the recognitions, Dr. Arsham.
You guys wanna get it back?
I needed you today. I need a locksmith for my car.
I'm available right now.
And he's got a belt for it.
Yes. Citizens to address the board? None?
No citizens.
Okay. Let's go on to presentations, Mr. Weiner.
Wonderful. We have asked our secondary schools to come and present tonight. And we want to start with the Los Alamitos Middle School. They're going to be reporting on their DASH plan and the work that they're doing as a school. So it's my honor to turn the floor over to Ms. Sanchez first from Los Alamitos Middle School.
Good evening, Dr. Guy, board members, wherever they are. I'm Reina Sanchez, the principal at Los Alamitos Middle School. I have two of my cheerleaders, the cheer captains, with me tonight. We were supposed to present our school, so we're gonna do that really quick first, and then we'll do the rest of what was asked. And so this picture that is on the front right here was our cheerleaders that actually got to cheer for the state high school football game, because Grants High School doesn't have cheerleaders. And so Mr. Jaramillo came to our school and asked the girls, and I think they were super nervous and really excited at the same time, but they did a great job. So they're gonna present a little bit here in a minute. At Los Alamitos this year, right now, we have 418 students. We have 224 seventh graders, have another 194 eighth graders. Our students come to us from lots of different elementary schools, and so it's a big melting pot right now with all of the different schools everywhere. You can go ahead and go to the next one. This is just a really quick snapshot of our annual DASH plan. At Los Alamitos this year, we started with some of the things that the leadership team from last year had already accomplished in the root cause analysis. And so we took that and we just ran with it. That's what we had to start with. We kind of started a little late in the summer. And so we created our 30, 60, and 90-day goal along with our annual DASH plan goals based on that. And so we're just at the end of the 90-day plan, and we have accomplished what we needed to accomplish there, and we're ready to move on to new goals in the spring. And so we've worked really hard to accomplish the 30, 60, and 90-day goals, which were based on student relationships and getting to know our students, using accommodations modifications a little bit better, and leadership and accountability. Our leadership really holding accountable our teachers and everybody there to use the appropriate accommodations and modifications, and just be better at differentiating in our classrooms. We have a lot of data that we're really working on this year, and one of the new things that we did is a test from Renaissance that works on the student perception of schools. And so it asks a lot of questions about how students feel about their teachers and about their school environment, and do they feel safe, and do they feel like their teachers give them good feedback, and do they feel challenged in the classroom. And there's quite a few questions on this assessment, and it gave us some really good data. And one of the things that really stuck out to us was that our 8th grade girls scored the lowest, well, the second to the lowest in the orange tier, for several questions related to how they feel about school and their confidence. And so we're really working towards building that confidence with all of our students, but really focusing on those 8th grade girls that have a lower, not these two girls, but have a lower self-confidence when it comes to school and their performance in school. The only red tier that we had this year was on the question that said, I think the rules in school are fair. So our students do not like our rules and we are 100% okay with that. And so we're still working hard with that. I have several people here with me today. Ms. Habiger is standing here in the back. Ms. Brownfield is another one of our teachers. Both of them teach 7th grade this year. And then we have Savannah Pena, which is our SSA. And Savannah, you can stand up, Savannah. They don't bite, I promise. Savannah is our student success advisor. And so when I met with her at the beginning of the year, she's like, I need clarity on what I need to do, what you need me to do. And so I said, right now, I want you to work with all of our students that have Ds and Fs. So print that D and F list and I want you meeting with them. So Savannah made this weekly grade check. So any of our students that have a D or an F do this weekly grade check and they meet with her. And she talks to them about things like, why do you have a D or an F in that class? What are you facing? What help do you need? Have you signed up for tutoring? We have over 100 students that are in our out of school time. So we average about 75 students that are there on Mondays and Wednesdays. Mondays are a little bit higher because we have a lot more students that go to Mesa, but we have right around 75 to 100 students that are staying on Mondays and Wednesdays for 2 hours for tutoring and for Mesa and for robotics and for all of the other programs that we have going on during that time. And so Savannah has checked in with me weekly, and so every week she's like, well, our 7th grade numbers went up a little bit. We have a few more that have Ds, but this is what's going on. I already figured it out. This is what happened. We need to work with this teacher on this, or this is what's going on with these students. And so these students need some makeup work. We had a higher number of students that were absent last week. And then she'll say 8th grade went down. So 8th grade is doing better. We have more students that are passing right now in 8th grade than we did before. And so that's been a really big part of the success that we've seen in this last quarter was Savannah working with all of those kids. Savannah also does lunch duty every day. I'm sure that's not her favorite part of her school day, but so she gets to know those kids on a personal level too, because she's in lunch duty every day with them. So she gets to see them, not only what they're doing in the classroom, but also gets to see how they are socially with other students and what issues that they're having there. And she can help our counselor, Ms. Sanchez, with some issues there too, so she can refer those. So we're connecting all the things together now, and so we have grades and honor roll. So for the first quarter in 7th grade, we have 25 students that were in A honor roll. So that's straight A's across the board, no B's. And then we have A, B honor roll, which we just look at a 3.0 grade point average, and we had 127 7th graders. Our 8th graders, we had 14 of them on A honor roll, and we had 111 of them on the B honor roll. And so when we look at this, we're talking to our teachers about how these grades and how this data correlates with what we're seeing on other performance data, on our IMASA, on our quarterly assessments. How are students doing on those? What issues are we having? We found some that are just having some test issues. They just don't test well, and so we're working on testing strategies with them. There's a couple of other issues that we're working on there. We had some issues with students on IEPs that were failing at the beginning, and then we had one of our PLCs, we had Ms. Morris, the special education teacher, talk to all of our teachers about accommodations and modifications and what our students needed to do to be successful in the classroom. And so they actually, the teachers could speak to this also, but they actually brought their lessons in and said, this is what my lesson looks like. How would I apply these modifications or accommodations to this lesson in my classroom? And so the other teachers were very helpful to each other, but also Ms. Morris and our instructional coach were very helpful to them too, just helping them get through what it should look like for these students with different abilities. So this is the discipline data that we have collected. This is all of our referrals. So not just the ones that go into Synergy, but all of the teacher referrals as well. And you can see that there's a big discrepancy between our 7th graders and our 8th graders. Our 8th graders still aren't used to the rules from this year. Our 7th graders don't know any better. And so Mr. Garcia and I have really locked down on rules. We don't allow cell phones. We don't have cell phones from bell to bell. So from 8 o'clock until 3:21, there is not a cell phone in sight. They're in their backpacks put away, or they come to the office and then parents come pick them up. And we don't have but 1 or 2 a week now. So it's really nice. That distraction is gone. We don't have them at lunch. We don't have them at games. We don't have them at all. And so that's been really good. We have also been very fair, firm, consistent. So Mr. Garcia has done an excellent job of keeping our discipline online. You can see we probably have more than all of the other schools, but anytime that there's something, we are documenting it. We get comments from the kids that, I'm not doing that because you're gonna call my parents. Okay, perfect, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep doing it. So we call parents all the time, every single day. Doesn't matter if we think it's minimal, we call parents. And so the parents are saying that they feel that we're really communicating with them, and so we're proud of that also. We hope that next year our 7th grade numbers stay even lower than these as they go to 8th grade, and then our incoming 6th graders to 7th grade will be just like that too. So we think that there's a discrepancy because our students are getting used to us too. And so our numbers are going up a little bit and then they go down, but we're staying consistent with it.
Sounds like my daughters when they were going through middle school, up and down, up and down.
This was our quarter one math for 8th grade. And so this is just a snip of basic proficiencies here. But you can see that we have students in all different of the categories here, but I'm pretty proud of the number of proficient and advanced students that we have in our 8th grade math right now. These numbers were in the single digits before, and so I think it's important to look at our students and see how they're performing on these quarterly assessments. We definitely have a lot of work to do, as you can see there too, but our teachers are very good at looking at this data and then figuring out which students need extra help, and they're working on that too.
Even though I have my glasses on, I can't see that. And I can't get this on the,
Yeah, we have
on my
20% of our students that are
screen.
far below basic right there. We have 67 that are below basic, 43 nearing proficient, and we have 33 that are proficient and 17 that are advanced.
and this is
That's
what,
quarter one, so that's
Quarter one.
just the standards that were taught in quarter one.
synergy.
Synergy, yes. And so this is just a snip of the top of that report. On the bottom of that report, it breaks it down for us by standard, by question, by teacher, by ethnicity, by gender, by everything that you can think of at the bottom of this report, it gets broken down to. So then they go over it in their PLCs with math and ELA. The teachers look at these by, I can guarantee you that Ms. Brownfield has a spreadsheet of all of her students that missed question number 1 on the quarter 1 assessment, and she's already intervened with them. And so that's what our teachers do on that level. And so this is just a snip of that very first part, but we dive all the way in. So. Go to the next one. I think it's just the next. This is English language arts for quarter 1, and it's right about the same. We have a lot more that are proficient and advanced in English language arts, and our numbers sit a little bit higher there. I'm seeing a lot less in the far below basic here, which is good. And so the far below basic are the ones that we really need to intervene with, and our teachers are doing just that. But it's the same thing in ELA. Our teachers are looking at this. It's a little bit harder for us in ELA. Our instructional coaches having to do more. We have 2 long-term subs. I have a 7th grade long-term sub and an 8th grade long-term sub with vacancies in those positions.
For
So,
ELA?
For ELA. Mhm. So these numbers are with 2 long-term subs. So when we get some teachers in there, I know that these are gonna be better.
So when you break down the data, say like the various at-risk subgroups,
Mhm.
how does that look? For those who are,
it varies.
who have an IEP, those who are ELLs,
Mhm.
those who are Native Americans.
We're looking at all of that because we're an ATSI school, so that's our designation right now. We're one of the lowest performing middle schools in the state, and so we're designated ATSI. And so the 2 subpopulations that we are designated for are English learners and special education. And so we're really looking at both of those. And so when we're in those PLCs, that's exactly what we're looking at. When you're planning for lessons, those are the numbers that we're looking at.
What percent of your students have an IEP?
I don't have a percentage for you, sir. I can get it for you, but I haven't looked at it. I can guarantee you, though, I have every IEP on my desk. Jennifer can attest to that. And I've gone through every single one of them. We've looked through every single one and made sure every kid was in every class
So,
that they needed
and
to
most of
be
the
in.
students are gonna be LD,
Most of our students.
Right.
That are on IEPs, yes.
okay.
And then we have a big number of our students that hit both of those categories. They're English learners and they also have an IEP, so.
Okay.
that we're working with those ones as well. This is our 7th grade. This is the 7th grade ELA quarter 1, and we've had a long-term sub in here since about the 6th or 7th week of school. And so same thing, we have a little bit higher numbers than we did in math for 8th grade, but we're still working on those lower numbers for sure. We have a lot to work on here. And this is our math quarter 1. And so we have a lot more in the proficient in 7th grade, and their scores are staying consistent from their 6th grade year too. So I looked at those. I was actually studying those before I moved as principal over here, and so our 6th graders were a lot higher last year than they did. So in our 7th grade. And so like I said, Miss Brownfield, I know has hers all the way down to the standard and the question, and she intervenes every single day with her students. And I know that the math teacher across the hallway does the same exact thing that she does, so.
Are there any patterns with respect to the kinds of standards that they're missing? Which standard seems to be much more prevalent or foundational to some of the
Fractions,
problems?
decimals, long division, it's the same thing that
What
we're
is it?
seeing. Fractions, decimals, long division.
That's absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if they don't understand how to deal with fractions when they get to high school, they got a problem.
Absolutely. So those just-in-time interventions that are happening in class and the deeper interventions that we notice when students are missing questions like that, we're really working hard to solve those problems and get them
Yeah,
ready for high school.
Just the absolute comprehension of what fractions is all about is challenging. And Gabe and I know that. It was something that the kids, we have to work with. And it sustains itself because fractions is a part of the sequence as you keep going up. So by the time they get to 7th and 8th grade, you expect it. But it's not just fractions. It's basically, but that is the beginning of algebra. So,
And so we're seeing our students that are coming with bigger gaps than they were before. And so there's a lot of interventions, and I have that in the next part of the presentation, but this one just tells you, we have data from all over. We have Success Maker, which is a program that we just brought in to help with some of those gaps. And so students can get on that as soon as they get into tutoring. I know they do that for 15 to 20 minutes when they get into tutoring, right, in ELA and in math. And it just fills in some of those gaps, and it helps us to identify those gaps with our students also. So that's one of the data points that's new this year. We always use our IMASA, NAMASA, our quarterly assessments. We've had Lexia for a while, and our students do better when they're practicing Lexia consistently, and so our ELA teachers are using that. We look at our student grades, like I said, with our student success advisor, and we look at the correlation between those and our other data. And then this year we finally have an SEL survey, which is that PASS survey that we talked about. And so that was good for our students to get a perception of where our students are. And now we know they don't like our rules, and that's okay. We're okay with that one. We're still working on confidence and things like that with our students. But I'm gonna turn it over to the girls. They're ready to do the next part of this, and so.
Hi.
Hi. Introduce yourself. Tell them what your names are.
I'm Michaela Gallegos. I'm Draylee McBride.
Michaela and
Rayleigh,
Draylee.
Draylee. How do you spell your first name?
Dralee.
Okay, unique.
So they're gonna tell you some things that are going on in our school.
What's going on?
Today we had a vaping information presented by the National Guard. It was December 4th and 5th. It was very good, and they just talked about nicotine and what was bad about it. And I think they did really good. We have so much going on at Los Alamitos this year. Our goal is for all our students to feel like this is their school and they belong here and have a part in all of the good that's happening in our school. We have sports, clubs, classes, and out of school activities. We have a cheerleading squad, and we cheer for volleyball, football, and basketball. This year we also cheered for the Grants High School volleyball and football games. We have about 14 cheerleaders. very fun, and we try to do dances and halftime performances. It's fun. It's enjoyable.
And they won't tell you, but they're very, very good at it too.
Our volleyball teams were very successful this year. Our 7th grade team went undefeated.
Well, great.
So the team's very good. We had a football team too. We had so many student athletes that we had to create another team. Our athlete director was able to secure a schedule for them, and we had a full football team this year. We had over 60 student athletes.
There you go, Pirates. You got some players coming up.
And you guys cheered at the Laguna game
Yeah.
where the 7th grade team played the Laguna team, right?
Yeah. We have a band in music, and Mr. Carrillo does an amazing job with our music program. We have 2 sections of band, beginning and advanced. They perform at games for our sport teams, and the guitar and piano classes are also available. We also have a robotics team, and that's with Mr. Padilla and Mr. Sawblade. They're working together to have a successful robotics program. We have 2 teams of 6 for robotics. If we can get more robots, we would have 50. Our kids love it. We also have a MESA program. Mr. Saracino and Ms. Wakanda have 75 students in MESA this year, and recently they've been doing fundraisers to go on more field trips. They've been 3D printing and fundraising. We had a few MESA and STEM class field trips. Mr. Saracino and Mr. Maxwell participated in the AFRL STEM outreach program where our students designed, built, and launched rockets. Mr. Saracino and his classes are using their 3D printers to create objects to sell in order to make their program self-sustaining. He also had his construction classes build shelves for athletic cages for all the athletic equipment. This is also MESA's STEM class. We have a few more, but we didn't really have pictures for them. So we have NJHS. NJHS, they do a lot in our school and our community. Right now, we're doing 2 fundraisers. We're both in it. We're doing Coats for Kids and a hygiene product donation. They have an art club, which is an after-school activity that they just have once in a while. We have a student council, and they get things together. They talk about different things for our school and how we can make it a better place. And we have yearbooks, and that's how we got all the pictures we have on all the slides. They also take pictures for the back of the yearbook. We have science fair, which our science classes have been getting us ready for, and it's usually in February. Yeah. And we have archery. I'm not sure if we started archery yet. And then we have FFA.
Have any questions for us? The girls can answer all of them, I'm sure.
I think it is for an opportunity for you to bring your perspective on your performances. And that is one of the things that the board is in the central office is focused on, trying to look at student outcomes as more effectively than we have in the past. And so that's our share of the work, is to pay attention to the things that are important that you're doing in schools. And that's why we asked you to come tonight. As you know, there are 4 questions that we've found to be very valuable as we create a mindset for the board that has to do with Number one, what is it that we're teaching? What do we want our kids to do and to read, learn, and be able to do? Second one is, what are the assessments that we're using? Third one is, if the kids are doing poorly, what do we do to help them? And the last one has to do with, what do we do with the high flyers? And you were showing us some data that reflected all categories of those students. And so as we get much more involved with this process of what we call student outcomes governance, we need to have you help us understand better what are the most important indicators of our progress that we should make in this district. You recognize that there were a number of students who still are not able to succeed as well as they should, and that there are interventions. So one of the most critical things we need to do are the interventions. What is it that we are doing? Can we document that? And is it going to make a difference? And how often should we as a board and as the administration look at this data? Is monthly too much? Is quarterly sufficient? What is it that we're still learning how to do that as a board, trying to figure it out. So your presentation tonight give us the initial beginnings of what it is that we need to look at. Board members, any comments? What do you think when we have the standards? We have 7th and 8th grade. Are those standards, are we addressing those standards effectively in 7th and 8th grade?
I definitely think that we're doing our best to address those standards. But I also think that our students are not coming to us prepared for those standards. Our teachers do a lot of back teaching. They do a lot of front loading. They are teaching a lot of the gaps that they're seeing. Our science and social studies teachers are getting students that haven't had science and social studies, real science and social studies, teaching all of those standards. And I don't think it's a problem just here in our district, but I think it's math and ELA have been the focus of everybody for so long, and that's what's tested, until they get to 8th grade science, and then they have this 8th grade science test that they're supposed to be prepared for. So I think that it's a middle school problem for sure. If you're not tested on something, I don't know that the focus is really on there, but our teachers are teaching our students all day in one class, and they're responsible for those students and the outcomes. So are we addressing them? Absolutely. And I think what Ms. Brownfield was saying with her just-in-time interventions, so the way that our math team does it is there's 2 types of interventions that they're going to do. There's some that they identify gaps in students that they can't address at that moment, but there's some that they've taught the lesson. They're seeing that students aren't getting it at that moment, and so they're going to intervene right then because they can. Some of the other things are so far built back, the gaps are so big that they have to intervene at a different time, after school, before school, during advisory time, at those other times. So I think that's really a loaded question because we're doing what we can at middle school, and I'm sure that high school has their own set of issues. But middle school is also a very short turnaround time. So we have 2 years with these kids. We don't have a whole lot of time to build relationships and to figure out where these students are and that kind of thing. I think if we had all of our students that we're learning through DLPs, then at least we have some kind of system that our students are learning for, and we can expect that our students are in 6th grade are learning what's in that 6th grade DLP. So where when we go to 7th grade that we know where we can start with them at. I think if we lose that piece of it, then we're losing the structure. We're losing what we can expect for our students. We're losing the vertical alignment that we were building. So.
Are you able to look at the incoming data from 6th grade to identify those standards that they are weak on? Well, how do you go about doing that? That's the data would be the IMASA.
Right.
And that data would tell you which of these standards these students who are 6th graders coming into 7th grade that are where they're weak at, where those gaps are. Were you able to get that information
I had that access because of what my position was before this, and so I had all of that information. Next year, I probably won't have it, and so I can ask Dr. Martin for it. We can always get it if we need it. I had it because I was already in that position, and so I did. And so I was able to tell our 7th grade teachers, this is where your kids are coming from, this is where they're at, so start here, and then once we get our beginning of the year data, then we can move forward.
When does the state release that information?
Late.
That's part of the
Very
problem,
late.
is that they don't get it to us.
But that's the NAMASA. The IMASA is instant. So the IMASA,
NAMASA,
like,
I mean, excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah.
I meant the NAMASA, which is the one that's the end of the year test that we were supposed to get, well, they used to promise us in June, but I don't think we got anything in June. So we didn't have that information until late. Okay. And IMASA, we get that every year.
we get it right away. So we have that one 3 times a year, beginning, middle, and end. So the next 2 days at our school, we'll be doing.
Is there a connectivity between IMASA and our DLPs?
Not really IMASA and DLPs, because IMASA is teaching beginning, or is testing beginning, middle, and end, all of the standards for the whole year. And so it's not,
I
our
get you.
DLPs are quarterly, so.
Okay.
So our quarterly assessments are a better gauge of what they've learned as to what they've taught in the DLP.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll give you the other presentation, because I had my school site presentation ready, and I have the other one, but I'll let Stevie and Jackie go, but I'll give you that one so you have it and you can
Thank
see
you.
that one.
It's a good beginning for us to understand, but the data, the state needs to get this data to us
You can have
sooner.
Ms. Sanchez, PED did inform you that you were no longer an ATSI school.
No.
We have celebrations. You are no longer an ATSI school.
Really?
Right before Thanksgiving, they rolled that out, but they were supposed to notify.
Yeah, some schools were concerned about that at the board.
I think you're classified as traditional, Dr. Martin?
Traditional.
Traditional.
Well, that was one of the concerns we had at the school board conference, that they couldn't tell whether they were which. At our school board conference, they were concerned that it was delayed. And so there's more criticism towards PED for not getting these out
Yeah.
and readjusting some of these categories. So that's great. Let the staff know.
Congratulations.
That's super.
At this time, we're gonna look at we have our 3 high schools. We have our 2 comprehensive and then our early college high school. Principals, I'll let you guys decide who goes first.
What's that? Quickest one to get up.
We just keep watching to make sure that Mr. Ortiz and Mr. Jones are on there.
Are they still?
You're there.
President, thank you for the opportunity,
Excuse me.
and board members and guests, thank you for the opportunity to brag about Laguna Acoma High School. It's always love to have that opportunity when I can get people to listen to me and hear what I have to say about such a great school that we have at Laguna. Soon we get our presentation up. I'm done. Thank you guys. Have a good night.
You gotta stay here.
Recording in progress.
So based on the email we got from Dr. Guy and some of the information he requests from us, that's what this presentation is going to cover. Go ahead, sir. So this is Laguna Acoma High School demographics. We have 195 high school students. There's our breakdown by ethnicity, tribe, and race, and our grade level. Right now we have 40 ninth graders, 61 10th, we have 56 11th, and 38 12th graders. Today we're going to focus on the 9th grade students, but I just want to give you some demographics overall what the school looks like. Sir. We can talk a little bit about our DASH plan. For high school, the biggest focus is graduation, and you'll see why. graduation rates throughout the state and I think throughout the nation, a struggle. New Mexico being one of the 2 lowest indicators for graduation. Of course, that's something that we focus on. And when we talk about graduation, just so everybody understands, we're not talking about graduating seniors that year. We're talking about the cohort all the way from their freshman year all the way through. So when you're looking at these numbers, that's what the cohort means. And we're gonna talk about our root cause analysis. We did our layer 2 intervention and leaderships and systems are the 2 part of our dash plan that we focused on this year. Okay. So for graduation, graduation rate, our goal is to get from a 67%, that's where we're at right now, up to an 80%. We also feel that attendance is a big motivator and one of the big things that hurt our graduation rates, because you have students who are dropping out, who are either dropping down a grade level because they didn't keep up with their studies and those kind of things. So it does affect their graduation, and they are tracked, like I said, as a cohort. Our benchmark goal, all students will complete the Major Clarity Program. Major Clarity is one of the things that the district purchases. I think Mr. Maldonado is the one who started it. I think it's a great program. What I like about it, it's comprehensive of so many parts of what makes a student within our district. It looks at, it helps them prepare for writing essays for college. It does their next step plans, which is a state requirement. Years ago when my children were in school, the next step plans was a piece of paper that you walked in and you signed that you never had no information on it because the state required it. With Major Clarity, we can actually look at those next step plans. It gives them videos to watch as to what kind of careers they want to go into. And I really enjoy looking at the student data, and we can find out what kind of field they're going to. We also use Major Clarity as building our pathways. When I first got to Laguna Acoma, we had a Woods program, and I was a big fan of it. I was ready to start building it, and when we did the Major Clarity data, we found out that the students were more geared towards engineering. They wanted more hands-on engineering programs. So we moved from a construction program into what was called Mechatronics now, and that's part of robotics engineering, and it's a great program. We're still building it. This is our 2nd year really using it. Mr. Gonzalez is doing that program now, and we're seeing a lot of success. We're the only school in the state of New Mexico that's using that program, and the only school that's comparable to us is Katy, Texas. And if you know anything about Katy, Texas, very affluent school that has a lot of great resources, and our students are able to do the things that they're able to do. So I don't know, many of you guys have visited our mechatronics lab and have seen the robotics that we have in there, the electronic component and the pneumatics program that they're learning. Another thing that we're looking at with attendance is our OSS and ISS. We're trying to keep the kids in school as much as possible. So we're doing some restorative justice opportunities so that we can keep them there. Even when a student is in ISS or OSS, we do not allow their absences from classes to affect their academics. They're still given the opportunity to keep up their classwork. They email their students, things are provided for them online so that their attendance does not affect their performance. Sir. Layer 2 intervention, our desired outcome. One of the things that we discovered through our root cause is teachers implement effective interventions, hands-on learning, differentiation of instruction, and modification to support all students. Our critical outcome, leaders set expectations on interventions. So the first part is what we want our teachers to do. The second part is what, as leadership, what our role is to do make this so this happens. So we set expectations on interventions, of the differentiation, instruction, student engagement, and conduct walkthroughs and give students feedback. One of my biggest things that I've, as a leader in the 7 years I've been a principal, student engagement is my biggest focus, because I think if you have student engagement, they learn. We talk about the different ways students learn, whether it's hands-on, whether it's from a textbook, engagement covers all those. And if I can get a teacher to not be behind their desk and be engaged with their students in doing small group, large group, individual work, then I see success. So that's part of what that means. Okay. Leadership and systems. Teachers communicate with parents regularly about behavior and monitor students in and outside of the classroom. We know that behavior is a big issue in schools today. We see a lot of grandparents raising students. We see a lot of parents raising students that are not actively involved or justified for their students' behavior and those types of things. So we really try to make sure that teachers are a big part of communicating with parents. What I try and tell my teachers is that as long as you are the one making that contact with parents, you hold the power. The minute the administration goes in and takes over your classroom, you lost that power. So we want that teacher to learn how to have that power and use it, but yet be supportive, because there is a point when administration does have to step in. So we try and communicate that with our staff. We have a process of disciplinary referrals. We log every referral that gets submitted, whether it's big or small, and we track them. We track students. We are able to track whether they get written up in their science class and then also their math class and also their social studies class that day. And we bring that information, and we started having meetings with all the teachers of that student, with administration and counseling, so that we can find out what's the root cause of this. Not that student's in trouble, we need to suspend them. What's causing that student to be in that situation? What's causing them to cause that problem? Is it something at home? Did something, divorce just happen? Is it poverty? What's causing that student to have that behavior? Not just they need to be disciplined. Critical action, school leader sets expectations on grading, monitoring of students, and communicating with parents. We're getting better with the communicating with parents. Sometimes it's tough, as we all know. They don't update their information on Synergy, but we do the best we can, and we try and bring the students in. Like we said, now we're bringing them into the school a lot more. Okay, so Ms. Sanchez talked about this. This is our PASS program that we use this year. This was phenomenal. I don't know whose idea was to bring this in, but what this does is its pupil attitudes of self and school will help us understand the student's mindset towards school, themselves as learners, and social behaviors. And so here's some of the data that we got about when we did this survey. And this is how they felt about school, how they perceive their learning capability, their safe regard as a learner, preparedness for learning, attitude towards teachers, general work ethic, confidence in learning, attitudes to attendance, and response to curriculum demands. Now, this was not specific. They only didn't get just 9 questions. This was a combination of, I think, about, do you remember how many questions are in there? 50 questions, and that's what this data derives from the 50 questions they answered. What's amazing about this is the report just doesn't give us the information with a bunch of numbers on it. It gives us every student and how every student answered every single question. So what we did once we gave these questions, we gave them to our counselor, and she started breaking down and started pulling out those students that sometimes you don't identify because they're hidden, because they don't want to raise their hand, or they don't want to be noticed. So this gets us the information. So Ms. Sanchez, our counselor, has been communicating with these students to say, okay, I understand that you're having a hard time with your teachers. What's going on? Well, I don't really like math, or I don't really like that teacher. Or it starts to stem from something, like we said, with discipline, something at home. Oh, my parents are, things are rough at home, or I'm not living at home anymore. I'm homeless now. We found 2 students from this data. We found 2 students that we didn't know were homeless, because they didn't want to say anything. But after having communications with our counselor, we're able to find out, oh, we're not living at home. Well, I'm not homeless. I don't live at the casino on the streets. Well, if you're living with an auntie or uncle or a neighbor, you're considered homeless, and there's resources available to you. So we're getting those resources. So this was a great tool. And you can see on the bottom where it breaks down the percentile, and I'll let you look at that data, because I could talk about data all day long, but I want you guys to take the opportunity to break it down. So this is our cohort of 2027, our freshmen. Our passing rate, we had 40 students enrolled, 95% passed Q1. As of Q2 progress, 97.5% are passing. So basically what we have is Q1, we had 2 students that failed a class, and that's just 1 class. And Q2, we had 1 student who's failing a class currently right now. On the bottom is our Synergy assessment data. And looking at the bottom, we have Laguna Acoma at a 58% proficiency in ELA. And in math, Algebra 1, which is the math class most of them take, is a 61% proficiency. What I'm proud to see is last year we had no students proficient in math, and right now we're looking at 21 either proficient in advanced, and of those 21, 9 of them were advanced in mathematics, which is a great step for us. You're looking at freshmen, we all know that freshmen struggle. We all know that they struggle in mathematics. So to have 9 advanced students was a big change for Laguna Acoma and for our students. One of the struggles that we have at our complex is we don't get schools from Grant-Sewell County schools. We get them from the tribal schools. We get them transferred from Santa Fe Indian School. So we don't have any data at our fingertips. You're talking to Ms. Sanchez about looking at that 6th grade data. We don't get that. When they come to us, they're coming usually from a tribal school. We do have a few that will transition from our middle school into us, but the majority do come from someplace else.
Don't change it, go back.
Sure.
It's really hard to see the numbers.
Do you have a printed version, or do you have ours?
I have that. Was it on here? Is it in the
It is.
packet?
It is.
It still might be difficult. I apologize for the colors. I should have put them all in that white background or that
One
white
second.
font so you can see them better.
This is the first, before Grants High School.
Okay, I'm looking at his presentation. Yeah, no, Dalton's stuff. But what was important was the looking at ninth grade students.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, here we go. Hold on. Excuse me, if you could change the font color and send it back with the white font. So that's the Gore 2027. Those are the ninth grade students.
Yes, sir.
And you have ELA. Then you have Math Algebra 1. And then you were going into, okay. Can I ask you a question about the, okay. The ninth grade students, does this information, and is there any additional information that you use to tell you which students are at risk of failing in ninth
We
grade?
use, we use, of course, the grade level.
The grades.
of the classroom, yes. What I like about this data is it tells performance. Sometimes a grade in the class, if they're my student and they get an A in my class, doesn't necessarily tell me that they're ready for geometry. It tells me that they performed all the tasks that are available in my class and what I gave them, whether it's a project, whether it's a test, whether it's a quiz, or I'm just grading my homework. What this data tells me is what students are ready to move on to geometry. So what I'm hoping is as we go through the school year and we get to that fourth quarter, those numbers change and I can say confidently, these students are ready for geometry next year as a sophomore. So I like this data because this data tells me about the readiness of the student, not just whether they can get their homework done or they what we call play school well, which means they do their homework well, they're well behaved, and they turn in their assignments. To me, that doesn't tell you how proficient a student does.
So you
This
have
data
40,
tells us.
you have 40 ninth graders. Is that how I should read this?
Yes,
And 95% of them passed.
yes. So that data is like what I just said, how they pass their classes. Yes, sir.
How they passed their classes, their
Yes, like-
classroom performance grades.
Yes, that's not performance. That's just passing rate. That's just the passing rate of the students.
The grade, their report card grade.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then QP2 is
And then the other two data is how they did on the assessments that they actually took.
the other two.
Percentage. Yes, sir. The two graphs you're looking at is how they did on the assessments, which to me is more important data. Although the other one does affect the graduation, make sure they graduate with their credits, but
Okay. So from left to right, let's see. So the numbers on the far right are indicative of those who are not doing too well.
the numbers on
And the
the,
ones on the left are the ones who are doing well
yes, sir.
on the synergy.
Yes, sir.
So you have,
But the very last column tells you the percentage.
so
So
you
it's
got,
kind of misleading because that percentage at the very end will tell you the percentage of proficient or near proficient. And the way the report works is that it puts them together, the proficiency and the advanced, it puts them together. It doesn't separate advanced and proficient.
that's good. So one of the questions is what is it that we do for those kids down here? The ones far below and possibly near.
And that's further, if you want to explain now, I can, but it is in the, as we go through the slides, it will
Okay.
come up. Is that okay?
Thanks, I finally
Yes, sir.
got it now.
Yes, sir.
And we can go on. I'm slow
No,
tonight.
that's okay. Okay, these are the questions that you asked. What do we do? What do we expect students to learn? So using the DLP is probably one of the best tools that the district has produced in a while. Because what it does, it gives teachers so much guidance and it's consistent from class to class. I have two teachers that teach Algebra 1 and they are teaching the same thing at the same time with their own style. Some teachers are better at teaching the Pythagorean theorem, where some teach this concept better, but they're teaching them at the same time. What's nice about that is when we give the assessments, we know what standards they've been taught and what standards we can hold not just the student, but also the teacher accountable for. So what do we do to expect, what do we expect students to learn? The DLP lines that up for us and tells us what we expect the students to learn. And the assessment results we saw tells us whether they learned that or not. The DLP identifies the standards to be taught, the central focus. So in every section, it gives you the central focus. What are we learning? We're learning the Pythagorean theorem, and that's the central focus. Then it goes into learning outcomes. This is what they should be able to produce, knowing the Pythagorean theorem, and that part of the is in the DLP as well. Teachers write the standards on the board each day. So when a teacher starts a classroom, they're supposed to say, students, today we're gonna learn this standard, and they're supposed to express the standard of what they're learning. So the students know what they're doing before they even do it. As the lesson goes through, they get to the end. At the end, they're gonna say, today we were supposed to learn this. Did we cover that? Now, sometimes those care will go on for the next day, but we try and get them to start with the standard and end with the standard so the students know what I'm gonna learn today and did the teacher do a good job of helping me learn that. So we use that part of the standards as part of every single class period. And they're written on the wall, so when you walk in the classrooms, I know some of them are kind of busy, but you should see the standards up there. When me and Ms. Sanchez do our walkthroughs, that's one of our checklists, is the standard there, and is the standard current. We do have, sometimes as a teacher, you get busy and you don't update your standard, so we make sure that they're updating those as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, sir.
Next one. The assessments.
What assessments are you using for? So just to give you a little review, so 7th and 8th grade, we use the IMASA and for the interim assessments, and we use the NMASA for mathematics and English language arts. It explains the two difference because we're focusing on high school. I'll go on to the 7 through 12, and that's the synergy assessment that we're taking. Also, our juniors take the SAT. Sophomores take the pre-SAT. We didn't have many students take the pre-SAT, which is kind of a bummer this year, but I think there's another opportunity coming up, Doctor, where we're gonna be able to try and get as many to take it. I think it was kind of a lax on our part. We didn't push the PSAT as much as we probably should have. We were more focused on the SAT. So we're gonna try it, and we have another opportunity coming up this school year where they can take the PSAT.
What's the difference?
Pre-SAT and SAT. The pre-SAT is kind of like a pre-test, where they kind of get used to how the test is run, the type of questions they ask. It doesn't really affect their graduation. The SAT, they have to have that for graduation. So the SAT is what they use when they go into college. So it's kind of like exposing them before, early on, what the SAT is going to look like, so they're a little more prepared. And we know that when sometimes we have too many assessments, we have the IMASA and the NMASA, every test is generated differently. So the PSAT gives them an idea of what the SAT is going to look like. So this way they're prepared on and giving answer the questions based on what they know, not whether the test was laid out correctly.
What subjects does the SAT cover?
English and math and reading.
Okay. And that's given in for juniors?
Yes, sir. The SAT is given junior, PSAT is for sophomores. And the district does cover that, and I'm sure you know that the state has gone away from doing the state assessments. They use the SAT now for graduation.
Okay.
Okay. What do we do if students don't learn the intended curriculum in the DLP? I think there's a question there. Oh, I didn't finish my notes there, so I have to ad-lib as I go along here. All students are utilizing IXL Math. For math, we use the IXL. It's a math generated program. When we proposed it last year, the district had a concern, and I understood their concern was, we don't want this to be a curriculum that replaces teaching. Because I've seen programs in the past where they have this curriculum, teacher walks in, log into your IXL Math, work on that for the class period, and then let's move on. We didn't do that. The way we did ours is a little bit different. We recognize that all our teachers are not math teachers. If I ask my English teacher to teach the Pythagorean theorem, they're not going to know how to teach that. So what we use IXL Math is in the advisory classes. So every day in advisory, let me back up that, every Monday in advisory, all students throughout the whole entire school, no matter what content you're in, is doing the IXL Math program. The math teachers are able to look at that, see what kind of gaps they have in there, and they're able to either offer support, and the IXL Math program also offers that support. So if I take it and I'm having trouble with fractions, we talk about fractions, it's gonna give me some more lessons in fractions. I'm not gonna do that in my math class. My teacher has to follow that DLP and has to continue with that curriculum. This is an intervention program designed to fit my needs and what I'm struggling with during my advisory class. And so we should see that progress moving on, and it continues taking the assessments. And so that's what they do during advisory on Monday. On Tuesdays, they do the ELA, and we do, it's Renaissance. ELA program that we use?
Lexia.
Lexus.
Lexia.
Yeah, Lexia. So they're doing that. That's new. We just started that this last year. And so Monday's math, Tuesday's Lexia, all done during advisory, not during the class so that it doesn't replace the curriculum or the DLP. It's for intervention specifically. But not only does it do interventions for struggling students, if you have an advanced student, it takes the student from where they're at. So if you have a student who's advanced in mathematics, it's gonna start them there and keep pushing them forward. It's not gonna hold them back and start on those basic skills. So when they first start with either one of the two programs, it gives them assessment, find out where they're at, and then it builds from there and takes them where they need to go.
So
Yes, sir.
if a student is doing poorly in algebra, say a ninth grader is doing poorly, and let's assume that they're taking algebra in that class. Let me understand, does that algebra teacher provide an intervention, or do you use the IXL?
That's separate. The algebra teacher does provide intervention of the content they're teaching in Algebra 1. What the IXL does is it identifies, we talk about, like, again, students struggling with fractions. As a math teacher myself, I knew fractions was a big struggle. And I knew when they left my class, they probably still weren't as proficient as I wanted to be because they were so far behind. So they leave me and they're still struggling at fractions. This is supposed to help build those gaps so that they get better at those skills that they're lacking.
How does the algebra teacher utilize the information that is being, the performance information that is being generated by the students' use of the IXL program?
Okay, good question. So the math teachers can look at all the scores and see where they're doing. One thing it does for them is because they're trying to teach that curriculum, if I have all these students in my class, it's hard for me to gauge that one struggled with fractions, that one decimals, that one percents. They can look at that and say, okay, hey, looks like Dr. Guy has a struggle with fractions. I need to make sure that when we're covering fractions, when we're doing algebra, that I make sure that he gets that extra support with those fractions. So they have access to the data and they know where the students are at and they know where every individual student is at, and it doesn't hide behind the curriculum that they're teaching at the time.
What do you, I don't know whether the teachers have had a chance to tell you, but what may have been, what were some of the weaknesses in math that these kids came in with at the beginning of the school year?
Fractions, decimals, and percents. It's a common problem.
Fractions.
Fractions, decimals, and percents. It's always a common problem with students. They struggle with it year after year. And when you start seeing it really hurt them, and Dr. Martin might even agree with me, is when we start doing geometry and they have those mixed fractions and those decimal, when they're doing shapes and finding area and perimeter, that's when they lose. So you don't know if they don't know perimeter, you just know they can't do the fractions. So we're trying to build that gap so when they do get them and they have to use them in a practical application, they feel more confident and they're able to use them better. And that's what we're trying to do with the IXL math intervention. Okay, what do we need? Okay, so I only put a few things on there because I didn't want to take too much time, even though I will anyway. And Steve, like, shut up, Jackie, you're almost done. To help meet the graduation requirements, I would like to see the district allow honors classes to be offered again. We went away from that. We took away the honors classes. For a student to graduate, they have to have AP or honors or dual credit. We already know dual credit is a struggle. Students have a hard time either logging in, they have a hard time understanding how to be a college student. There's just some are just not ready to be a college student. AP classes are a little more advanced. You have to have an AP certified teacher, which I struggle getting. And that's the only options we have because a couple years ago, we took away those honors classes. With honors classes, we can still meet that graduation need and still help our students take an advanced course that will help push them, but will also give them opportunity to be successful. By just having AP and just having dual credit, we set our students up to fail. Me and Miss Alkins, sorry, she is Sanchez. But me and Ms. Hawkins had this discussion today about her feelings on this subject. And I'm sure she can tell you that she feels the same way.
Absolutely.
Okay, there you go. Absolutely.
I can elaborate later.
Okay. Incentives for AP teachers. I have 2 AP teachers. In order to be AP certified and to teach AP, they have to take a course over the summer and they have to become AP certified. So if we're going to invest in our advanced students, this is the way to invest in our advanced students and say, if you get AP certified, you're going to receive a stipend. Just like we used to do with, what was it we had? We used to give stipends for National Board Certification. Why not give our AP teachers that incentive to become AP certified. Because it is a lot of work. It's more work on them. Some teachers don't do it because they're like, oh, it's more work for me. I gotta give up a summer to go get certified. I gotta keep up with that certification. I have the College Board I have to work with, and it causes a lot of more work for them. So why would you get AP certified if it's not gonna be something that I'm gonna use all the time? So I think incentives for AP teachers to get AP certified would really help my school, because right now I only have 2 courses. And if you compare us with Grants High School, we're really behind. To only have 2 courses isn't fair to our students. My students who are advanced students are being cheated because we don't have enough AP certified teachers.
Which courses are you?
What courses?
There's 2 courses.
Biology and ELA.
Mr. Sanchez, Mrs. Elkins, Dr. Martin's been talking to us about the honors classes. So he's working for you guys on that.
Good. Professional development for teaching in regards to supporting advanced students. Well, you and I had a conversation, Dr. Guy, about our advanced students and how we help them. And I think we don't do them a good service. We do the best we can. We try but we don't really have a lot of training for them. Looking at my school alone, I have half of my staff are either long-term subs or alternative licensures. My alternative licensures teachers come to us without any training. So to tell an alternative licensure teacher, we want you to be differentiated. We want you to try and help your IEP students. And now I want you to try and take your students who are above proficient and are advanced, and I want you to push them, but we don't give them training for that. They come out of working in the field, maybe they got a degree in underwater basket weaving, and now they're gonna be an ELA teacher, but we've never given them the training to take those advanced students. We always focus on how we can help, the interventions we can do for our low scoring students, but nothing for advanced students. We need training to help those teachers work with those students. How do I do it in the classroom? We did have Kagan training this summer a couple times, and we have another one coming up. Kagan was a great opportunity for teachers to learn how to do just that, how to do engaging activities that are small group, large group, turn and talk, all those kind of strategies that a lot of people learn in school.
Kagan.
Kagan, K-A-G-A-N is the.
Cooperative learning.
If you.
I know what it is.
I think it's there. Okay, never mind. So Kagan training, it teaches collaborative teaching and how teachers can teach collaboratively. What nice thing that it does is it helps teachers understand to take one of your advanced students and one of your struggling students and put them in groups without making them feel uncomfortable, and how they can work collaboratively, and how the advanced student can help the struggling student, but yet not allow them to hide. So Kagan training was great. Raina can tell you she's the one who helped bring it, and she's the one who promoted it. Mr. Widener is familiar with it, and it was really beneficial. One of the things that I ask my teachers to do is, as you use them, we have a chat, and we did turn and talk today, and we had a great time, and students did a lot more. So that helps, but that's just a small part of what our teachers need to help our advanced students. Good. I'm done.
Any other board members have questions?
All right. Thank you guys for your time, and you're always welcome up to Laguna Acoma, come visit us, and my staff loves seeing you. I do appreciate how the visits that we've gotten. We love seeing you guys there, and they all know you by name now, which they didn't know for a long time, so they know all departments by name, so we appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Elkins, Ms. Coles.
Good evening, Dr. Guy, Mr. Widener, board members online, and everybody in attendance. Thank you for having us today. You will find that Grants High School's presentation is very explicit to the questions that you posed to us.
Thank you.
I've already presented to the board all of that kind of stuff, so I wanted to stick really tightly to what you posed. So I'll start with our DASH progress, if you move forward. Just as a reminder, our goals were inclusive of, and our focus areas were inclusive of core instruction and systems and leadership. Like Ms. Sanchez said, I think that we've done a really good job with our 30 and 60 and 90 day, and are about to wrap up those 90-day plans. And just kind of as a summary, we want to provide high quality, equitable, and engaging learning experiences for all of our students, for everybody. We want to collaborate. Our PLCs are going really well, and we want to really anchor ourselves in data-driven instruction, and we really incorporated that into our PLCs. I think that was a huge piece that was missing prior to our PLCs was collaborative data dives, and it became clear to us with our 30-day check-in that we didn't really know what that meant. And so we've really focused on what that means for us as a high school and as Grants High School, and how we make that work and how we move on. So again, our goal is just to elevate our core instruction for all of our students. And our second focus area was systems and leadership. That's been really important to me as a new leader, and with a brand new team to Grants High School. I think that it is critical that we develop our leadership styles, that we integrate it with the staff members that are there, that are new, that are not new, and move forward from there. It's really easy to start as a new principal or even as an assistant principal and be drinking out of a fire hose, and we wanted to determine what the most important systems to address were, and to really commit to strategies to address those issues. And like I said, brand new leadership team there, and we really wanted to establish a style and expectations and just overall culture and morale at Grants High School. So like I said, I feel like we've done a really good targeted job with our 30, 60, and 90 days, and we're ready to kind of get rolling on the next steps. So as far as those next steps and our next 90-day plan, we want to really start to integrate technology into what we're doing. I feel like we're doing a good job, like I said, data diving, but we want to kind of streamline that process so it's something that's going on in the classrooms and not just PLCs. You know, we want to kind of gradually release that responsibility so it becomes part of their daily plans and their daily instruction, and not something that we're just focusing on in PLCs that's being guided for them. We kind of want to let go of the reins and allow them to do that, and allow them to track that data and use that data to drive their instruction. We want to continue with consistency in expectations. We want to expand and when I say leadership, I mean leadership within our school. I'm not talking about the 3 administrators, but leadership in our school, because that's part of that leadership and systems. It's really easy to think that, you know, leadership comes from our offices, but the strength in leadership does not come from our offices, it comes from our classrooms. So people establish themselves quickly, and others need to, you know, we need to go in and see where those talents lie, and what we can do to help them realize that talent and put them on the right path so that they're leading what they're experts at. And just cultivation of continuous improvement culture at all levels, at the administrative level, at the teacher level, at the custodial level, everywhere. We want just a continuous improvement of culture for our kids. One of the questions that you posed to us was about our 9th graders. So we currently have 223 9th grade students at Grants High School. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. Some of the issues, you know, and I would imagine that these are very typical issues for 8th graders turning into 9th graders. They're a little squirrely, they're excited. You know, they're at the big school now where they have a little bit more freedom. And so the challenges that we've kind of, and if you look at the presentation, I did challenges with an associated strategy. So one of those challenges is just transition. They have a really hard time transitioning, and it's not anything that they're doing behaviorally, it's just a tough transition. And so we have had orientations where parents are required to come to those orientations. We have lots of clubs, lots of extracurriculars. We have mentorship programs that we are implementing with the older kids. And so those are all strategies to the transitional challenge. Academic preparedness, so the strategy associated with that will be diagnostics,
appropriate classroom placements, targeted instruction, targeted interventions, and just critically checking on them all the time, especially ninth graders. Checking on them once a week is not enough. We need to be checking on them and reminding them of just simple things daily. You need to sit in the same seat every day. And that's hard for them, but we found that just consistency in that really helps. They have a hard time adjusting socially because it's kind of a similar thing, like they're drinking out of a fire hose. Because there is we do give them a little bit more rope, you know, and a little bit more freedom and a little bit more responsibility. But with that comes a lot of heartache sometimes. They're getting their hearts broken. They're thinking, you know, that a breakup is the end of the world. They're thinking, you know, all of these things. And so we want to provide that SEL in classrooms every single day. Quick check-in. Hey, how are you? How are you feeling? Is something wrong? You know, that kind of stuff every single day. We want them to say their names every single day. And that's important to me, and Mr. White knows that that's one of those things that's very, very important to me, is to say their name and to say their name and to say their name. Because they're like, oh, you know me? And I'm like, of course I know you. Of course I know you. You know, and so that's important. They struggle with organization and time management. That's tough for them. This year, with the exclusion of the health credit that is necessary at the high school because they're able to looking at the middle school, we have, so historically we've offered health one semester and drivers at the next, and then we switched that at semester. We've implemented a freshman orientation class, a very, very structured freshman orientation class. And those two classes are running just very in tandem, and they have, those are both alternative licensure teachers. So Mr. Jaramillo and I, when we started the school year, we wanted that to be a very structured daily thing. So we worked really hard over this summer to provide a 90-day curriculum, if you will. This is what we're gonna do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single Friday. We do grade checks that are similar to what Ms. Sanchez talked about with her SSA. You're failing. Why are you failing? Get on the computer with your teacher. Let's talk to them. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. We're requiring teacher signatures. We're teaching like digital responsibility and that kind of stuff in that class. Just how to speak to an adult, how to advocate for yourself, but how to advocate respectfully. You know, you're gonna get a lot further if you speak to a teacher with respect. Who is your SSA? If you're having problems with this, you go to Mrs. Elkins. If you're having problems with this, you go to Mr. Jaramillo. If you have questions about this, you know, you go to your SSA. So that kind of stuff. Freshmen have a really hard time understanding graduation requirements that I've found, that they just don't understand that these credits mean something and that they're important. And if we don't take care of business when we're freshmen, we're gonna be paying for it when we're seniors and juniors. So that's one of those things that's important. And Dr. Guy, you know this, we struggle with attendance and punctuality for everybody, ninth graders included. It's a little different for them because somebody's taking them to school. And so there's a little bit, you know, of a different kind of responsibility, but we struggle with them on campus as well. We struggle. And so ninth grade wise, that's kind of where we're at.
So you got statistics on your ninth graders?
As far as like attendance,
Academics.
so yeah, I have a little bit. So we have 223 freshmen. Now that's not necessarily true freshmen, because if a sophomore student has not earned the credits, they're being considered a freshman. So right now we have 223 freshmen. At the quarter, we had about 28% of those freshmen with at least one F. And I would tie that directly to some of the issues that I mentioned, just the increased workload, the attendance for sure, but that graduation requirement, because I cannot tell you how many kids are seniors now and that come up to me and say, Mrs. Elkins, I wish I would have listened to you. Those freshman classes were not hard. I should have paid attention. I should have come. I should have stopped ditching because now I'm having to do double the classes as a senior. So I think that that's one of those things, just the reality of the goal is important for them. And then they're not necessarily grabbing the reality of what it takes to get to graduation, because they're just kind of under the mentality that it's gonna be all right. Somebody's gonna fix it, somebody's gonna come in. So, 28% at the quarter had at least one F.
So that is a simple indicator. We don't have to embellish with anything else. Basically say, who are the kids that are 28%? So then you go back in your team to figure out which one of these factors, these challenges, is affecting them, and which ones do we need to intensify and keep on doing what we're doing, or what kinds of academic interventions are they going to be needing? Do we see any of the, because some of these kids may have a history that goes back a few years. Which courses do they seem to be getting Fs in?
So
Are there any patterns like that?
So our initial thought, our knee jerk was that it's because they're not in class. So we started producing a weekly DNF list, and Mrs. Jones was still on our email chain for a while. So we started producing this weekly DNF list and pushing it out to the people that needed it. So Mr. Jaramillo, Mr. Young, and myself kind of sat down and realized that we segregated the data, and the biggest issue was not necessarily, there's definitely issues with attendance, do not get me wrong, but the biggest issues were not necessarily with students who were gone every day. We had a huge number of kids failing that were in class every day. And so that caused us to look a little deeper into what was going on in those classrooms, and kind of circling back to Mr. Sanchez's, what are we grading for? What are we looking for with those grades? What is the association with grades and learning goals and standard mastery and that kind of thing? So there were teachers that had huge numbers of failure rates, huge numbers. And so with those teachers, we intervened as we would a student pretty heavily and got to the root cause of why those failure rates were so high. I would anticipate that those rates are lower now. That's been kind of a hard push for administration, because the gist is, well, they don't like my failure rate, so they're gonna make me pass those kids. And so we've had to work really, really hard to look at that data and kind of have a little bit of a reality check. If there's 50% of your class failing and not 50% of those kids, if 90% of those kids are in your class every day, that's not something that the kids are doing, that's something that we're doing as a school level. So we early on were really digging heavily into our PLCs about what was going on in those particular classrooms.
And so-called interventions, differentiation, things that we need to do to address those. You're gonna have larger classroom sizes than LA.
Yes.
So what's the average class size?
I would say 23 to 25 is an average classroom.
And which subjects are we finding to be difficult for the kids, ninth graders?
Mathematics. They struggle the most in mathematics. And it's really, to me personally, so, and I've been pretty vocal about this, I did not come to education as a math person. I am very much so an English person. But outwardly, a kid can say, oh, I hate math, and there's no stigma associated with that. There is, but if I say, oh my gosh, I can't read as an adult, there's a huge stigma associated with that. There's a huge thing, gosh, you as an adult can't read. But the commonplace is, oh, I hate math.
It's okay to be bad in math.
Cause I'll tell you that, you know what I mean, like a terrible math student.
Okay.
And I would never tell you that I struggle to read, you know what I mean, or that I can't read. And so we're fighting that stigma a little bit because it's just commonplace to say, ugh, don't like math, and that's okay. And that's the culture. So that's gonna be a complete
It's a mindset
culture shift, yeah.
that they've developed over time. That means, as we can see, so it's more of a district systems problem,
I wouldn't even say district, I would say much more.
a
widespread,
generational
yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Even the parents probably
Yeah,
hated
it's
math.
very taboo to say that I can't read, you know what I mean, very taboo,
Okay.
but we can talk
So-
about being terrible at math all day
Okay,
with confidence.
so then the challenge is, what is it we're going to do? And that's what we're trying to understand is educating us to know what it is that our district is going to do to address that seemingly ongoing generational kind of a thing that even their own parents were having difficulty and so forth. And that cultural mentality, that the mindset that we just are gonna have a rough time with math. So I guess I'll pass with bare bones D. So back to us, we need to, when you talk about your strategies, the strategies for ninth graders, it's probably reflected for the other grades too.
Yes, absolutely. The math is a trend, for sure.
In other words, the ninth graders, we're seeing this profile in the ninth graders. Well, those ninth graders who were, 10th graders who were ninth graders last year went through the same mindset and probably are struggling with Algebra 2 and Geometry and Trig and whatever else you have. And so that means that kids are not necessarily wanting to take those other courses. They're gonna try to do their best to avoid the math that was already causing them problems in the first place.
I was a senior in 2006 and sat in a trig class and thought, nope, put me in business math. You know what I mean? No, absolutely not. No way. And so it's the culture of the perception of math generally. I don't think it's a school, I don't think it's a district. I think that's, like Ron said, a societal issue. My personal opinion on that is that the standards are so rigid and they're so geometry would be a little bit more abstract, but they're so rigid. We've had a lot of success in our applied math classes, which are very, very similar standards, but they're speaking to the demographic of our kid. Our kids love that class. They love being able to go out into the field and measure something and associate those fractions that they struggle with in the algebra class. You know, the same kids, same standards, same everything, but they love the applied math class. So part of the strategy and at the principals conference that we went to, we sat in a careers to pathways that the state now recognizes as math credits for graduation. And those are all career and technical ed. The pathway for those standards is being delivered with career technical ed. So we would really like to explore those. You know, if we're offering an Algebra 1, we would like to offer a partner Algebra 1 careers to pathways Algebra 1 course. I think that might help. So that's one of those things that could be a possibility that
We're just
we'd like
thinking
to
through it, okay.
explore. So the question, and I numbered them.
Thank
So you're welcome. So for us, elements of the intended curriculum should include, of course, the learning standards, scope and sequence, which is inclusive in our DLPs, assessment criteria, integration of CLR, SEL, and CTE. And that's kind of what I spoke to. I think that CTE piece and that career piece is kind of missing, and we've seen some success there. It should provide me as a teacher a roadmap to where I need to go and where these kids need to go. We want kids to be well-rounded in all areas. And so I've said this before, but some of our classes don't necessarily have a DLP, and we would like to, in our PLCs, kind of start bringing that back. I really studied the updated graduation requirements in the state of New Mexico, and this will be the last year that they waive EOC and alternative demonstrations of competency at Grants High School. We would really like to bring those back to everybody, to everybody, to the art class, to the PE class, to the fitness class, to everybody.
To bring what back?
So the end of course exams, so that we have an added layer of teacher accountability, but an added layer of data so that we can see how our kids are doing on our standards in all of classes, in everybody's class. And that adds a layer of safety net, because if they don't do well on the SAT, or if they miss the SAT, we as an LEA can determine that they've demonstrated mastery on via those EOCs. So that's safe for us. Intended curriculum is foundational for planning instruction, developing assessments, intervention, and enrichment. So question 2. So what we currently use is the PSAT, the SAT, DLM for our alternative students, our life skills students. The master, we use Synergy. We also use, and I didn't list it there, but we also use STAR, reading and math quarterly. And again, our regular formatives, quizzes, EOCs, finals, things like that. Standardization is present for those summative, but I don't feel confident saying that it is present for our formative assessments, which I would really like to, with the EOCs, streamline that process so that it is uniform throughout. Grades play a pivotal role because they do have to earn credit, and that's where that credit comes from. But again, like I mentioned, we want to really dive deep into the relationships between mastery of standards and what those grades mean and what we're grading for and what we're looking for with those grades. Because again, they have to pass to earn that credit. So
That's right. I'm just listening to you.
okay, keep going. Roll.
No, just hold on.
Okay.
I'm interested in the EOCs
Okay.
because we don't have anything else statewide. We have SATs and the PSATs, but I don't find them to be germane to what it is we're doing. In different courses, you've got 26 credits. How many of those credits are going to be measured performance-wise at the end of the semester, so that you'll know whether did they it basically enables you to make comparisons that are more balanced. But I'm reluctant to have us go back to the statewide achievement tests kind of stuff. That would be having more assessment time on top of instructional time. But you still got kids who are going to be doing extra credit. Unless we can figure out what we're doing with ninth graders. So the challenge is for us, when we look at ninth graders, will we be able to tackle some of these seemingly long-standing historical problems for students who are having problems with mathematics or whatever else? I don't know whether it's with science or some of the other subjects. Ask you another question though. When you break down disaggregate the data, you've got a sizable portion of the students who probably who are ELL. I don't know, maybe not. And then students who have an IEP. And how do those two groups factor into your assessment of what, say, when you talk about 28% are failing, how many of those kids have IEPs or are English learners or are Native Americans or Hispanic or whatever?
So I would say the number, and I don't have an exact number, but I would say the number is pretty similar. So we have 169-ish students on an IEP right now out of the fluctuating 840 to 850, which is about 20%. I wanna say we have about 140 ELL students, so right around the same area, so 20% of all of our learners are ELL learners, and about 20% of all of our learners are learners with IEPs. Some of them cross, a lot of them cross.
As we heard before.
Yeah.
About 20% of the students who have IEPs. 20% of the students may be English learners. Bona fide English learners who have taken the test and are assessed to be English learners.
I have my own thoughts about that.
Because there are, you know,
I would say half. I would say half are true English language learners that speak another language, and English is their second language.
That go through the process of being
Yes.
identified, and then they take the language test, and then if they score below 4, then they're actually designated as English learners.
Right.
Okay, so you were saying in your mind that the group could be larger than those officially designated as English learners.
No, I think that's my concern with that is always that if we're talking about English language learners, it kind of couples with students who struggle with language generally. You know what I mean? And English is their first language, but they struggle with attainment of the language, with, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I would say of that 20, maybe 10% are true English language learners that their English is not their first language.
Officially, we're classified that way.
But yeah, 20% is what I
Okay.
would say officially.
I'm not quibbling, I'm basically trying to create a picture in my mind that is meaningful for all of us. And what I've said is that a lot of the students do not really have English. Native Americans have what we call Indian English. It means we learn English that is not the standard English. We learn the English that we generationally have learned from our families. So it's not going to be not inclined towards academic-oriented kinds of language proficiencies. So they're going to have lesser vocabulary development in their early grades, say like kindergarten, first grade. So we got to build a lot of that. So that if that's the case, that means that is a persistent problem that occurs throughout their schooling until they get to you guys, and then we're still having to then have them understand things like syntax and all the complexities of language. So that 28% is probably a pretty honest appraisal of what we're working with. And we have to figure out what factors are impacting them. But nevertheless, you're saying regardless of that, we've got to figure out how we're going to address the standards that to be taught. How does the report card grade, the grading system is much more genuine in appraising their performance? How do we work with those classes that have a large population of these failing students? If we can tackle this would be remarkable, because then we would then say, all right, when the 10th graders, Lane, that we don't have to, we can see that being a diminished kind of a barrier for some of these kids to succeed. It's just my rattling off on this, just because I'm pleased to hear you say these things. You know, it helps us to build a better understanding for a board. It's complex, so it isn't just a test score for us. So when we say we want to succeed with high schools, and the state is having a problem, the same problem throughout the state. But APS saying the same thing. We've got a lot of kids who don't have academic language. They can't write an essay for beans. And they're scared to death to talk in the classroom.
Yeah.
I assume you were not one of those who were scared to talk in the classroom. You're just gonna do math.
No.
Okay. Let's continue.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. So when we look at test results and we find that students are failing, which they are, I've reported that. What is our response? Is MLSS being used appropriately? Are there difficulties? Is there need for additional supports or interventions? So we identify those students through their test results, through their failing grades, through communication and collaboration with their teachers. We have to know our kids because like you said, those grades don't mean everything. They don't mean everything. They mean that that child is behaving in class. It means that that child is receiving homework help at home, you know, from somebody who's able to help them. And so I can't confidently say that every single teacher is using MLSS as it is intended. I cannot say that. As much as we would like to. We've focused on, with MLSS, with those students who are performing at the lowest level, who are not special ed and have started there. Just because it's a new process and it's one that even I have to say that, you know, and Ms. Grego will speak to this, we associated that with special ed initially. I think everybody is associated that with special ed and that's not what it's for. And so that we had to completely like wipe those perceptions out of our head and the teacher's head that this is not a special ed tool. This is a tool for you in your classroom to intervene. And like I said, I cannot confidently say that we are using that to its full potential or with fidelity, but we have started. We have started. So when I say we'll develop individualized learning plans, not necessarily IEPs for special ed students, but through that MLSS platform, we will develop check-ins and strategies that we should use for each kid. Continue to offer professional development in our PLCs with collaboration, and just enhance our ability to meet the needs of diverse learners because we don't always, like Mr. Sanchez said, we don't always know what's going on with those kids to address what the root cause is of why they are failing or why they're behaving as such. I put here, we want to address holistic factors that are affecting students' learning. We struggle with parents, so we want to continue to actively involve parents. And like Mr. Sanchez said, that's uncomfortable for teachers sometimes. They don't want to do that because they're worried that they're going to get beat up. And sometimes they do.
Yes,
I mean,
we do.
And I will step in when that happens. I will take that hit 100%. But oftentimes parents just don't know what's going on with their kids. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if they're behaving like that. They don't know. And I would say like 75% of parents are gonna be supportive and they're gonna thank you for calling.
Dr. Guy, Richard dropped off.
She dropped us? And so that's uncomfortable, but that's one of those things that we want teachers to push through the uncomfortability to have relationships with those kids' parents. And I think that that's really critical to that. And parents surprise you sometimes. I know that, like I said, especially with the amount of long-term subs and alternative licensure, they don't have the training to necessarily have those conversations, and they get defensive and they think that they're picking on them personally. They're just mad and they're advocating for their child and they're doing it in the best way that they know how. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily well versed in their own ability to resolve conflict and their own ability to confront issues and to they react with anger and accusations, and sometimes they just need to calm down. And so we're really pushing that because at the end of the day, I don't know what's going on in those classrooms. I don't know everything that's going on. I don't know how that kid is behaving daily. I don't know why he's sleeping every day, you know what I mean? But it's important that our teachers take that step to develop relationships with the parents and with the kids. That's one of those things that's important to us too. And like Mr. Ramirez said, they're not gonna learn from you if they don't like you. So it's important. We want to continue to ensure ongoing evaluation administratively about what's going on in those grade books, because that's our first stop in trying to get a snapshot of what's going on in classrooms. And that's been tough for the teachers.
Yeah, I was at the school board conference, and we had a lot of board members there who were expressing the frustrations that their secondary programs have. Because they're the ones who collect all the children and they're all up in ninth grade, here they are. And they can't say, okay, they're graduating, but they're bombing these tests. And so they don't understand why. And it has to do with the grading, report card grades and all that stuff. And then do all the creamed high potential kids actually ever do they all get a chance to filter through and succeed? You know, and that's, and so when we talk about question 4, have we gone to question 4?
I will jump off right now if you're ready.
Well,
We,
but
we
the reason I'm
currently
saying-
don't have a quorum.
Well, we're no longer have a quorum, but however, you're gonna finish your presentation, okay?
So in response to question 4, how can we describe the things
As
we're
of-
doing for our high flyers? Are we providing enough advanced enrichment for our top students? So like Mr. Sanchez said, we offer advanced placement classes, we offer dual credit classes, and lots of projects. We have MESA, lots of extracurricular things. We have Skills USA. We have lots of opportunities. However, in direct correlation with Mr. Sanchez's concerns, the state of New Mexico still requires an AP course, an honors course, a dual credit course, or a distance learning course, which I would really like to explore. And like I said, I've done a lot of research on that, but I would really like to explore the definition of a distance learning course, because what happens, and at least at Grants High School, because I know Mr. Sanchez has a completely different, he has the opposite problem, is those kids need that credit to graduate. So I'm putting a student who struggles to read in an advanced placement course with a student who is what you would, describe as a high flyer. That is not equitable. It is not fair for the high flyer. It is not fair for the student who cannot read. It is not fair for that instructor to try to differentiate an advanced placement curriculum so vastly. It's not effective for anyone right now. We, full transparency, really struggle with dual credit. We really struggle with dual, and I don't know if that's because we're just not there yet. There are some relationship issues with some of our dual credit partners. And that's not me and that's not the college. It's the fact that there's not good communication because they don't share those grades with us. Because once they're college students, nobody has control of those grades but those students. And so it's not something that I can go in and check on. It's not, we've had kids where we're doing daily checks and their platform allows them to put what if grades in, and they come and they show you, look, I'm doing just fine, and it looks like they're doing okay. So we struggle with dual credit. And I'm with Mr. Sanchez and in full support of bringing back those honors classes. If I have spent 4 years in welding, I deserve a peak honor credit for staying in that class for the last 4 years and committing to that class, or a pathway class. So I'm excited for that collaboration and those conversations. As far as addressing those high flyers, we want to continue our collaboration with universities. Mr. Jaramillo and I really talked about the success of Gear Up and would like to re-implement some of those practices back to Grants High School and to the district, because I feel like there was major success in just exposure alone for Gear Up. I think that was a great time in this district, and it's something that we can do. It's something that we can do, and it's something that we should do. We've done a great job district-wide of pathways and specialized programs and courses, external competitions, events. We have lots of kids doing great things. So I think that we are providing enough, but I think that we could most certainly provide more. I think that we could definitely do better for those kids. And they often, because there's a smaller number of them, they often get overlooked by the big problem. The 29% of freshmen that are failing, our focus goes there. And so, again, I think that we do provide enough. I think that we could most certainly provide more for those students. And that's all I have. Any questions? Let you guys go home.
half of the population is Native American. There are high flyers in there too.
They are, absolutely.
And so you can see them, you see their enthusiasm. And so they need to, so that, I guess that's the reason why the research was saying you gotta start with start with ninth graders and see if you can leverage that for that cohort, say the cohort of 2027, and say, what can we do? So in a sense, you're building the beginnings of something hopefully will be able to sustain. So you're gonna take this group 2027 and see how you can diminish that 28%. At the same time, the reason why the 4 questions exist as they are is because the board must have a mindset of kids. And that we share in that role of system support for all kids. So we, not only are we supposed to look at the kids who are struggling, but we gotta look at those kids who need to really flourish and deserve that chance. And so that's what we want to do. So we must always keep them in mind in some fashion. So what we have to do, and this is not just for the ninth graders, you're basically saying, okay, what is it we can do for those students who deserve that exposure to new, creative, innovative ways of learning. So that's part of what we need to consider as our agenda as we're going along. So I do thank you for taking the time to present all of this. There's quite a bit that the board and Mr. Widener and us, we need to do is to, did we educate all of my board colleagues well enough? It means that we're starting out this endeavor, and we will continue to do that. So you're gonna help us learn how to be much more student focused in important ways, so that we match what it is that you're trying to aspire to in your schools. And we do thank you for taking that time, all of you. And we started with the high schools because that's always been, that's where we're getting to. And that's why we wanted to do that. It's in the right lane. We wanted to start with you guys. And you actually are kind of crystallizing a lot of the things that we now have to look downwards towards the elementary schools, because we feed you. Those elementary schools feed you. But I'm not sure whether all of your students come from our feeder schools. Do you know?
Most.
Most of them. Whereas LA, it doesn't. They only have Cabero.
Well, and Ms. Sanchez mentioned in her presentation that they're getting kids that are not ready.
Yeah, and they're from other schools and they can't control the input. And so that's one of the other challenges. So I think we need to continue to discuss a lot of the critical issues. I do wish you all the best. And we hope that we can continue to provide the resources that are necessary to move this along. And there's one young lady back there who's not going to get a chance to speak. But we're going to reserve special time for you.
You're the headliner next time, Ms.
So-
Coles.
You're basically going to cap us at the next meeting, okay? And I do apologize. I was trying to get you on there, and I didn't get all of that on there. But you're also an important integral part. A lot of our parents want to experiment with that alternative approach to high school education, and so they're interested in that too. So we thank you. At this point, we do not have a quorum. We just continued this discussion informally from 8:37, I think it was.
8:35.
8:35. And so we unfortunately have had illnesses today or something else has transpired, and we only have Mr. Ortiz with us, and we had Mr. Richard Jones with us to the extent possible, and then he had to drop off. He did his best, and we do appreciate that, because he actually enabled us to get through a very important thing that we're trying to learn as a board, is how do we support all that you're doing from top to bottom. and we got through a lot of this. What we will do is to have to just explore, what did we hear? You know, and how can we flesh this out even further down the road?
Yes, sir.
So at this point, there's no prayers or extended salutations. The meeting has just dissipated at this point. And so audience on Zoom or Medium, we apologize, but we will have to discontinue and try to
Mr.
come up with
Ortiz,
something
thank you for being with us.
You bet, no problem.
Ms. Coles, do you want to come to the next meeting? We'll have you present with Dr. Martin, because Dr. Martin's got lots too.